What's up, email geeks? Welcome back to another episode of Feedback Friday, where we break down some of the best emails in the game and chat with the creative minds behind them. Today, I'm super excited because we got a full squad from Marketing Rhythm in the house. Joining us this week is Robbie, Jesse, and Kathy, a killer team who's been pushing the boundaries in email and retention marketing for some pretty disruptive and fun e-commerce brands. We're diving into their work with Rebel Rabbit, a CBD seltzer brand that's rewriting the rules on social drinking. If you're curious how to make your brand stick out in a crowded inbox, you're going to want to stick around. Let's hop in.
My name's Robbie. Started Marketing Rhythm a little while ago, and we mainly help e-commerce businesses with email and retention marketing, and get to work with a lot of really smart people and do a lot of really fun things with some cool brands. So we like to kind of push the boundaries of what we can do, and on the design side, especially, like Jesse, Kathy, and our again creative team do a lot of amazing things, and we like to think like we're doing some really innovative things on strategy and hopefully innovative on the design side too. And then kick it over to Jesse too.
Jesse Godfrey. I'm partner and creative director for Marketing Rhythm. I'm all focused on the design and the brand aspects of our clients and making sure that we're translating their beautiful brands into the email space. And then Kathy's on my team.
So I do freelance for Marketing Rhythm. I work mainly with Rebel Rabbit and Plus Plus, but yeah, I've been here for over a year now. So it's been fun learning about the email industry and how much goes into it. And I'm excited to dissect our emails today.
Awesome. Well, you guys do an amazing work. Is it specifically just email marketing then, or?
Like it's kind of like anybody who works in the email space. Like we're going to get into client strategy at some point and work with the clients in that capacity to a large extent. But we focus on email. We get into SMS also, but it's the medium we have spent the most time in right now.
Cool. All right. Well, we got some great examples from Rebel Rabbit, a standout brand, I would say, from some of the emails that we're looking at. And it also touches on some THC kind of Delta 8-9 stuff. So I'm curious about some of that stuff because I've always wanted to really talk to a brand that had to maybe work within some of those constraints or struggles. Okay, cool. So this first one, Rebel Rabbit, looks like a fall email, a very eye-catching GIF up at the top. Maybe talk about some of this email and what the challenges were, any sort of creative design decisions, anything you'd want to share?
So kind of a 10,000 foot view for this. Rebel Rabbit is like a THC seltzer. Seltzer, it's actually a brand that's based in like Greenville, South Carolina. Like Jesse and I are based in this area, and Kathy was based here for a little while, a few years ago, but in Charlotte now. But one of the things we always try and do with the clients when we get into the consistent process of sending is get into what we always like refer to and is known as like a hygiene hub and hero model, where we have certain pieces of hub content we work to introduce on a consistent basis. So every quarter we do, like for them, we want to release one of these, again, playlist emails. It gives us a way to kind of like bring the experience and bring the personality of the brand to them in a little bit different lens. And in terms of like engagement with the brand, it allows them to just dive a little bit deeper. And when we can be tastemakers in that space, the audience appreciates it. So it gives us a pretty low-hanging fruit way of creating quality content, but also giving them a way that they get to dive a little bit deeper with the brand. And again, for the retention perspective with them, like that's what we're focusing on a lot for this group.
From a design perspective, I was just going to say Rebel Rabbit makes it super easy on us. They've got a really fun brand, very like kind of disruptive and against the grain sort of vibes. So it's always fun to design their emails. I'd love for Kathy though to talk specifically about how she had the idea for the record on this header. GIFs are something we try to do as often as we can, especially in the header area, just to grab attention and keep people, drive people to scroll down. And I thought this was just a beautiful execution of that. So Kathy, if you want to speak to that a little bit, that'd be awesome.
So I always try to add some subtle movements, whether it's like little products like moving. But with this one, I had the idea of the vinyl because I like to pull in like the nostalgia factor. They use a lot of like disposable film images, and I think that ties in really well with that, blast from the past kind of feel. Uh, and with the label, I kept it green because, the Spotify logo is pretty recognizable, but we can't actually use it. So yeah, I mean,
And Kathy, like again, like subtle brag, like Kathy, you've been like on fire, like with gifts, like that has been like you're the gift queen right now.
thank you.
I would say they all look pretty great. So what kind of, just to be a little nerdy, what kind of programs do you use? Like, what is your process for some of those gifts?
Oh, it's definitely changing. I'm trying to figure out like the best ways to do stuff, but we build everything in Figma right now. But sometimes I have to pull it into Photoshop to know to like add some spice to it, make it a little bit more clean. This one took a minute for me to figure out to animate through Photoshop, but definitely had to reuse it a few times by just like swapping out the background or like the can.
Cool. I mean, it looks great. And I think, some brands like really think that they need a really long, extensive GIF, but I think, you can do a lot with just a couple of seconds looping and you can really make like you said, bring some attention grabbing GIFs in and kind of add that movement that maybe add some engagement to the email overall.
Yeah, definitely.
Sweet. And like you said, I think, for a brand that needs some sort of lifestyle elements, I think this is a really effective way. We've seen some brands kind of do this playlist approach, and I think it works pretty well. People are interested in like adding something, and I think it kind of switches up the content rather than just being like wholeheartedly promotional all the time. So
Yeah, we normally have them post those embed those playlists into their actual blog. So we're sending them to a blog where they can like we want to send them typically back to a site where they can engage from there. They can click into the playlist from there, but we want again we want to send them to an own channel as much as possible too. So we always try and like have this as a process we'll go through every time this one of these is released.
We talk a lot about context too, and like always trying to position the brand in context of where our audiences are at. And so, especially when you think seasonally, like the playlist is a really clever solve to, just speak about fall or about the holidays or about whatever the thing is that they're, positioning playlists around and make that feel timely and relevant to the folks that are seeing this stuff.
yeah, and I really like the transition from the different sections. I think you do a really good job with just a simple design on kind of making them feel separate, but still kind of keeping that consistent design system language across the different sort of emails. I really am a big fan of the shop by category. I feel like we've been talking a lot about navigations and how they're changing. So I'm a big fan of something like this, having something like a very shoppable, tappable thing on mobile that you can easily engage with rather than maybe like a really huge navigation bar at the top.
I'll give a shout out to Jesse on these. Like for any new client we work with, we create a few of these. We typically want to have a few shop by categories, and you guys visually tell that story so well. But we may have ones that look like buttons, ones that look like squares that they can click on to make it easy and shoppable in those emails. And with this group, even we're using some different tools where we can have a like certain content that's dynamic. So if somebody's a subscriber, they won't get a restock button there, but if they aren't a subscriber, they'll get a restock button there. So if they're not a subscriber and have purchased before, they'll get a restock. If they haven't purchased, they won't get a restock. But it makes these really kind of interesting, but it also allows us to vary those quite a bit too. So we don't want to have the same shop by category in every single email over and over.
And then I guess my last question on this, I noticed that this footer is pretty sparse. I'm just kind of circling back to some of the THC stuff. Is there any like legal requirements that you've had to think about, or how do you maybe get away with such a short footer is my question.
I think in terms of like where this one is in terms of and like we've worked with Rebel Rabbit and leaned on them for a little bit more context on this one. Their team is really, really, really like buttoned up and ahead of things in terms of like what those disclaimers need to be. And they're actually like helping with some of that like regulation around some of these. So pretty involved in the industry, but because it's a like Delta 9 product, the way it's derived, it doesn't require that to be on there.
Yeah, I'm always curious, like, if brands that are promoting those products, struggle with something like ESP selection or something like that as well, just because I feel like some people have specific limitations. But as you're saying, I think it is specific per product on how that is. But I'm always interested in brands marketing to like an adult audience. I think it just is an interesting like type of communication to do. So.
And they do have a really kind of unique angle that they have to kind of they're towing a unique line. Like they can have paid ads. They can have paid ads on Facebook, paid ads on Google, but they can't. SMS has been a challenge. So like getting approved for SMSs, carriers are kind of on the anti side. So again, email is a really great tool for this, but it's still kind of that wild, wild west in terms of the regulation around some of this, and like where that falls.
All right, cool. We can move along to the next one. I'm a big fan of this like kind of sexy fall glass vibe. I'm liking it a lot. It definitely like stood out. I like the subtle shadows here. It really makes this image sort of pop. And I really like when brands sort of break that mold and use 3D or some sort of animation or visual change to separate these sections. So I'm a big fan of this one.
Since you mentioned it, the kind of breaking the plane on the header image is something that we do really across the board, across all our client roster. It's just sort of a philosophical thing for me that I think if you can break that seam and make it feel, I think it makes the email feel dynamic overall, that it's
Yeah.
not just a box and then another box, but rather kind of interplay between elements spatially as you scroll downward. And so that's something you're going to see whether it's Rebel Rabbit or Plus Plus or anybody else. But Kathy does a nice job of taking that and then making it even more beautiful with the the imagery that she selects. And this is a really cool content type that we do for Rebel Rabbit. I don't know if Robbie, if you want to speak to the strategy here.
Yeah, and this is another one that kind of fits into that hub content strategy where each month we'll release one of these drinks. Mocktail recipes are like Rebel Rabbit. Their purpose is like they're not like anti-alcohol. They want to be an alternative to. They want to redefine social drinking and basically have an alternative to just alcohol in terms of like social beverages, which is again a really cool message. But each month we release a mocktail recipe that gives someone a different way to enjoy the product because they again are not like a behemoth in the space yet. They only have a few flavors. So like we want to give people multiple ways to use the product and enjoy the product. And then it just allows them to kind of enjoy it in different ways, enjoy it from different angles. And it gives the nice, again, relevance to where that audience is at in the moment too.
Yeah, very versatile product. Like it's really interesting to see shifts of like this type of content. I think is really effective as well. We've seen like a big increase of search terms on really good emails, people looking for emails that feature recipes. So I definitely think it's a trend where more brands are sort of bringing in some sort of content like this. I think people enjoy getting inspired in the inbox and maybe making like something at home. So.
Yeah. And in terms of content in general, we like to work with brands who are willing to invest in content too. Again, email can get really boring if we are not adding value beyond the transaction. And if we if we can communicate and educate and empower them in a way that's going to be relevant for them, typically like people are going to want more information around how to consume, how to engage, and how to, again, enjoy what they're using better. So the content side of things is we feel pretty passionately about, and we really like being able to kind of have that engagement side to keep people engaged, keep them coming back. And especially for a replenishable product, like we maintain that top of mind preference really well.
And I really enjoyed this section here. I actually kind of really like that it's a switch up from the previous footer. I think adding this pop of color at the bottom like definitely ties the whole email together. So I'm a big fan of that as well. Have you seen like a good engagement on a section like this, would you say?
Yes. Those typically do drive a good amount of traffic back in. We always kind of think about the emails basically like it's like giving somebody directions to get somewhere. The primary CTA is the directions we want them to take. We want them to go down that primary CTA first, but if they want to take an alternate route, we want to give them an alternate route. So those, again, shop by categories gives us a way to get people in and engaged. And like I mentioned earlier, it doesn't show it here, but we have another category block in there that's a little bit lower for people who have purchased before and people who are not subscribers that allows them to restock. So it takes it to a service called Repeat where they can, again, recreate their cart really easily. And of those buttons, that's the most engaged with for those that see it, but it typically does drive a good amount of traffic in each email.
I just wanted to also mention in the header, sometimes the product doesn't need to be the primary focus of the email. So that's why I kind of made it in the background a little bit. I think that when you present something more aesthetic than, a can, it can really entice the user to keep reading.
Nice. And how do you get your product photography? Is that something you guys work with the Rebel Rabbit team with?
That's something that I feel like as designers on this team, we struggle with a little bit. We have to kind of use stock images sometimes or build things from scratch, but it's definitely a fun challenge sometimes have to do.
We're supplied a lot of photography and assets on the front end when we onboard a client, but a lot of times it's also just being nimble. And you're finding something on the brand website that was recently swapped in, or you're coming across something on social. And I think with email, the resolution's not massive for these things anyway, so you can be flexible and nimble with that kind of stuff. But it's a lot of that sometimes. Sometimes we have great stuff in our repositories, and other times we're making it work with what we can find. And I think that's part of the fun.
Nice. Well, it looks great. It looks very natural. It looks very on brand. But I agree. It is tricky when sometimes a brand just gives you like a link to a homepage and they're like, figure it out, make an email based just on this. So it is nice when brands can provide you with additional stuff, but I think you've done a really good job of making it really feel consistent with what you were given. So nice work. All right. Well, moving along to more of a kind of a balance, like a plain text style text template. This more letter format I think is really cool to see. I really like brands when they switch it up a little bit rather than just every email looking the same. I think this is a nice balance of pulling in like a photo of the co-founder and kind of making it feel more like this letter format. I think it can be effective. So do you want to explain a little bit about your thought process behind some of this stuff?
I think this is one we call the hybrid template emails. We always kind of think of like we have our again kind of design emails, hybrid template emails, and then plain text emails. This is one they give all the bells and whistles of and functionality of an HTML email, but a lot of that human touch of a plain text email. From the perspective of like engaging with the brand, it gives us a lot more to work with. Typically, if we are like having want to make like a more intimate connection, want to like ask somebody to be a VIP, asking questions or doing a little bit more overt selling, we can get away with a little bit more with these plain text emails. We get a different sender name, which makes it really nice because it's from Pierce, from the brand. And it basically, over time, our goal is to kind of allow that avatar or that person to be known by the individual. So we always joke like, yes, we know it's working when somebody responds to emails and asks for Pierce specifically, or when somebody calls and asks for that person, because that's when they feel like, hey, I've got a relationship, I trust this person. And especially like brands, like people buy from people, not necessarily just brands. And we want to build that personal relationship as early as possible and keep these like fun, lighthearted, and engaging too.
Yeah, I really like especially how scannable this email is. I feel like you guys have done a really good job of keeping the content sort of tight and short and relevant, and it kind of being very scannable with bullet points. There's other ways to like, I think some brands like really compact copy together, but I think adding some white space, spacing it out makes the whole thing a lot easier to read, and then you have that main CTA driving traffic.
Yeah, we want them to feel. We want it to feel like a personal email as much as possible. Like if you get an email from a person, it's not like a wall of text. Hopefully.
From a templating perspective too, like this is really useful when we do automation flows because it allows us to kind of switch back and forth in the sequence of emails, so that you're not seeing the same. Often you're talking about the same behavior, the same type of content in those emails throughout a flow. So it allows it to feel less repetitive when you're able to kind of sequence back and forth between a designed email and a hybrid email. So that's worked really nicely for us too. I mean,
So the
everybody loves a
calendar
good
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Kathy.
No, the little markdown calendar is a fun way to kind of engage with the customer, and follow along with their sober October journey.
And we sent a few of these, so you would see the calendar over time being ticked off, or checked off, I guess, as we progress through October. So that was a cool
Oh,
idea.
nice. I like that. That's cool. I was gonna say like some animation here would be cool, but I like the idea of like it being sort of close to the day that it was sent, like the amount of checks. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, the context around these ones was wonderful. I think we like it turned out so well. I think there was like three different emails with those calendars in it, or three or four with the calendar in it, and like each one having the day of like was just really neat. Being able to kind of keep that going, especially because that's like a kind of a milestone in that world.
Definitely. All right. Well, I want to keep moving on. Um, so we got another amazing GIF here for sober October. I was curious, kind of walking through these. Is this something that I don't like? I'm curious for people that may not be sober that just kind of like enjoy this product to relax. If this is like a type of content that they would maybe want to opt out of, but I think in general, I think this is pretty okay with people like messaging to this audience. It seems like they would be down with it still.
We've again feedback from the audience and feedback from the basically they fall into a few different categories of like people who are like wanting again an alternative for alcohol, somebody who do want again to kind of like transition from alcohol to other things. And a lot of the feedback we get is like people trying to experiment with this. There's also kind of a group of people who are like a little bit more want a higher performance. They don't love the hangover side as much. So we get a little bit of everything in terms of like who those different groups are. And surveys that we've done like have been pretty resounding and like positive towards like exploring more like this. Typically dry January and like we try to incorporate sober October have been strong performing months for them. So like it's been strong messaging and good for the way we kind of like approach that of like people like trying this. It's not like trying to be preachy and saying like, hey, that you should do this. We're just like, hey, this is a thing for a lot of people. It's kind of cool. And if you're trying it out, that's good on you. And like, we're on the journey together.
As someone that is no longer partakes in any like that is sober, it is really cool seeing other brands specifically like in that space. But I have never really seen a brand really target to this. But it makes a lot of sense for sure. This section I am a very very big fan of. I love when brands sort of incorporate like this aspect ratio of like that social media real type story thing into email. It just really, I know it stands out to me and it makes it feel like oh I can go on a social media and they have a polished thing, but I really like this format. I feel like it's something that someone might be familiar with, and it like is a good context for content. And I really like this layout. I feel like sometimes it's a struggle to break it out or make it feel like good in this kind of space, but I think the color blocking and then just this layout is really effective. So nice work.
We try to use as much content as we can find, and sometimes that's not content we're creating. So that's a big part of our business model is just, if it's already created, let's find a place for it. And so Rebel Rabbit has an awesome kind of social operation. They produce a lot of content, so we're able to leverage and find natural places to integrate that into campaigns. So we have a lot of fun with that.
All right, well, we'll keep going on this October theme into more of a spooky Halloween email. We're a little past Halloween at this point, but this gift definitely is sick. Even like not even Halloween related, I think it just looks awesome, to be
Yeah.
honest. So.
Yeah, this is definitely a fun one. I had to take some time to do some research. I've never really like made Halloween graphics, so this was like fun. I know brands like definitely have become super creative now. There's like so many trends going on, but I kind of took this trend back to like the vintage campaigns, um, with the skeleton hand and kind of making it look realistic or tying in like something realistic with it. And the typeface is pretty big. It's loud, and I wanted to use the typewriter animation to kind of slowly introduce the message, so it's not like in your face. And honestly, I was thinking like maybe if someone opens the email, they'll miss the hand. but as they're scrolling, they could suddenly see a hand come in. They're like, "Oh wait, what is going on up there?" You know? But that was just kind of my take on this Halloween themed email.
Kudos to Kathy for like being thoughtful about how the text enters. To me, the fact that the text is kind of coming in a word at a time is what keeps you on the GIF thinking that there's going to be more to it rather than scrolling past it. If it were a static headline, you might would blow right by it. So really nice touch there. And I just felt like this one feels like, like the old Rudolph movie or like those old stop motion kind of films from the holidays. So I don't know, she nailed the vibe, I thought.
Yeah, I'm a big fan again with just like subtle things like some spider webs, this like tear. I'm a really big fan. I think that shows like the appreciation of this channel and the detail. It just like it makes it stand out a lot more. One question, I guess, another technical question: are there tools that you may use to like reduce the overall like size or weight of these GIFs? I mean, they're pretty like they use a lot of colors and things like that. Does that ever like impact the load time of an email like this?
Oh yeah. Sometimes whenever I have abstract GIFs, that it takes a while to keep the file size down, but you kind of like get lucky if it's low, like if it's a small file size. But I like to use, I think, easygif.com to optimize it. I don't think I had any trouble with this one. I find that like making the frames individual in Figma and then pulling it in to Photoshop reduces the size a lot.
Nice, nice. And that's a great tool. We definitely use that a lot as well.
Yeah.
Good one. Awesome. And one other design point that I saw through the rest of these emails that I did want to sort of call out is even though you guys are using center text, I think you're keeping it like that 4 line, which is like kind of that limit of readability. So I'm a big fan of that. I think it kind of works still with this brand and bringing everything together.
Yeah, I think that's like our when we ever get to that point, we start to move into left aligned. Jesse, I know Jesse has a passion for for accessibility, and I joke about this too. And for years, Jesse and I have worked together in different capacities. I always called Jesse Dr. Frankenstein because he could like bring stuff to life in so many crazy ways. And like, look, when I saw this one, I was like, oh my gosh, Jesse has some competition. This is so good.
For sure.
I guess, Jesse, is there any like accessibility tips that are usually top of mind when designing an email like this, or for brands that may be kind of newer to that space?
I think lately what we've been like wrestling with is dark mode and just
Yeah.
really trying to figure out how that impacts things. I think it's one of those things that for I think a lot of users are light mode users. And so it can be out of sight, out of mind for designers unless you're really thoughtful. And so that's something we're dealing with when we're trying to do anything that has like transparency or overlapping elements and things like that. Just understanding how dark mode's gonna invert things in the end. And really, the best way is just doing a lot of testing, both in testing platforms, but also just literally switching your phone to dark mode and looking for yourself if something's gonna have low contrast on dark mode. So that's the most top of mind one right now for me.
Awesome. Well, you guys have done an amazing job using live text, using a lot of good colors that have good contrast. So overall, I think you guys do an amazing job. And again, small details like this, I think, take this email to the next level. Well, very cool brand. One of the other popular trending sections on really good emails is drinks overall, like different types of beverages. So I definitely feel like it's an emerging market. People are excited and like learning more about this. And I think you guys have done a really good job of marketing this product to a really wide audience. So nice work. Underrated. I hope this drink really blows up because it's really cool. And you guys do an amazing work.
Rock and roll. Thank you, Matt.